version of the design yet, but we're still able to see how user research and user testing contributes to give us data that influences our design decisions, even from the low fidelity wireframe stages, right? Things like that. Then that's round one of the user testing that we did. Now we did another round two. After we've improved it, we did a round two version of it. And this is what we got from the inside when we spoke to people. And then we worked on a round two version of it. Keep going back and forth. This is the initial version, this is the new version, right? Some of these older users always think this is cut off. They were not used to the experience of sliding things on the right. They think it was cut off. Like, why can't I see this? So we ended up creating like a list version of it instead, right? So normally this effect is a very cool effect for designers these days because they believe everybody is already used to doing it. But grandma and grandpa may be confused. How do I? Why is this thing cut off? I can't see this thing. No, my screen is broken. I can't see this stuff. This kind of questions, right? But if it's a list item, they're already used to scrolling and scrolling. So the list view of this card is most preferred in this use case than the card version of it where you have to slide from the inside out. This is would have not by usually designers would just design this thing and feel so cool that, oh, my design is nice and fresh, right? But is it solving the user needs, right? You see how user research and can help us gain insights to make small changes that would make the app better suited to the user. It doesn't have to be big. You can just be deciding whether you should use card. You know, this is a card, to decide whether you should use card or list items in your design. And that small difference can make a very huge difference eventually, right? So this is still wireframe stage. You see, we'll move from very low fidelity wireframe drawn with hand to slowly very rough again wireframes done with black and white, but very rough, right? Basically. So this is just an example of how user research has been very impactful in helping you go from point A to point B. Hope this was helpful to you guys. I'll take any questions you may have now. It's fantastic. Anyone wants to say anything?
Okay. Yeah, good day.
Hello, Omot Toyosi.
Oh, Ebuka speaking.
Oh, Ibuka, hi.
Yeah, good day. Okay, for your UX audit, when you're explaining something for UX audit, hello, can I go ahead? Yeah, you explain something for UX audit. The UX audit, like, does it entail like you auditing like probably a product or a website, and you find like probably maybe an issue with the website that you can try to correct, or is it part of like a design process?
Okay, so it is when you're doing UX audits, it is basically observing the website and pointing out UX flaws or
Oh,
UX places where UX best practices would have been most effective. Uh, like for example, this is one UX audit I did for this website. So this website, first of all, but it the first stage is to like define the objectives of the review or the audit, and that usually guides how you go around it. But it is you can audit for anything, right? You can audit for, but if you can say, for instance, for example, now we needed to audit the process and the usability of the website, right? And so we came up with different things that we needed to. What's the outcome of this UX audit was to come up with a service map that shows the entire process, right? Then the usability heuristics, which is basically UX flaws, best UX practices, and things like that. Accessibility guidelines is to check if the site is accessible, if there are UX practices that are accessible for users that may be blind to something. Like accessibility designs are like designs that makes it possible for people who have challenges to be able
that's
to still use your product. Imagine you're doing a website like Facebook for somebody that is blind. Someone that is blind,
mm,
those people that are blind, for instance, or visually impaired, they rely on that that's this possibility where you can use tab on your computer to move from one place to the other instead of
yeah,
scrolling with your hand, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
voice those things. So those people depend on those accessibility features to use the same websites that we are using. So people who are blind can use Facebook and be chatting and engage with you on Facebook, right? And the
Yeah.
only reason they can do that is because Facebook is accessible. So that's where accessibility guidelines come in. Mobile UX accessibility as well. There's like UX best practices for mobile, and that is already set in place. That doesn't even require UX research because UX research has been done for that already. And that is what was set as the best practice, right?
That's
For
possible.
example, what mobile is very small. We know that we have a limited amount of space where you can show information to the user. So what are the best practices that helps you effectively create a mobile version of your website? For instance, there are already best practices that exist. How we have principles of design, which is like balance, contrast,
That's,
alignment, and those type of things. Those things exist at the core, right? So when we are evaluating something or doing UX audits, we're matching everything we're seeing on the website against the principles of UX, the principles of design, the design principles. We're matching them against those things to see if they meet those expectations, right? So this is an
yeah.
example. I created a service map of the entire process of the website, and when I was creating the process, I was noticing UX flaws for how a particular process was terrible because it got the user to do one thing that can be done once. It got them to go through 5 stages to get something that can be done in just 2 steps, right? So that's what I was able to uncover from the UX research or audit. So see UX heuristics. So what I was able to filtering, sorting information architecture. These things are primary UX accessibility things, right? Filtering, sorting makes it easy for the user to have control to see the information that you are displaying to them. If they are just seeing the list and they do not have control to filter that option, that is not a very good UX because they don't have control to influence what they want to see at a particular time. You get?
Yeah. Sure.
So that is what
That's,
UX audits just match what you're what you're supposed to audit against the principles and best practices around UX. Hope this is helpful.
yeah. Sure. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ibiko.
Exactly.
Hello.
I asked the question. So
Okay. Can you ask it again? I'm sorry I missed it.
I asked what the question was.
Come again. I can't hear you well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
You mentioned something about science that what to stand up for and what method, like how to do it. Part.
Sorry, I can't hear you at all. Can you type it as a chat so that I'll just see it pop up and then respond to it? I or maybe take away your headphones. Okay, guys. Any more questions? We've got like 23 minutes left.
Right,
So
partner.
high lows.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, how do you go about affinity mapping for quantitative research?
Okay, so for quantitative research, you may not need to do like affinity mapping for it because depending on the tool you use to conduct your quantitative research, it gives you your because the goal of affinity mapping is for you to quantify of for you to group and quantify your qualitative research, right? But because of the way we ask qualitative research questions, it's difficult for us to say 10 people said they were unemployed, for instance, right? Because people will talk about it in their story. But when we do affinity mapping, we'll break down what everybody said to the nitty-gritty parts of it. We'll break it down into small sets so that we can then map it. That's why it's called affinity mapping. We then map all the different things that made sense, all the different things that were similar, that people said were similar, and group them together, right? To form the motivations. So, but qualitative quantitative research already does it for us, where it gives us, for example, let me go back to this. Let me go back to this. So this is what we end up with when we do affinity mapping. but we don't have like percentages, right? But we're able to map what people say all together. But with quantitative research, we don't need to do affinity mapping for it, because this already, what we need from quantitative research is this quantifiable data, which is this percentage of people that do certain things based on the questions that we've asked. This is the end goal of qualitative research. I mean, of quantitative research, because it gives us quantifiable insights based on the user's activity, right? But for qualitative research, after a user interview, you need to do like an affinity map to gather together all the responses that you've gotten from your from your um from your user interview responses. Hope that does that give clarity.
Good afternoon. Good morning. I want to ask,
Good morning.
okay, so for example, if you are conducting your qualitative questions, like your questions, okay, you are drafting out your questions for qualitative research. Should you like also make use of questions you asked in the quantitative, like the quantitative questions? Can you also repeat them for your qualitative questions? Or you should create another set of questions entirely for your qualitative research. My
Okay.
question.
So they're the same questions, because the goal of your research may most likely be the same, but it is the same questions, but they are structured differently, right? So you can ask the same questions, but ask the same questions in a different way. Like an example where I shared, where okay, let me share that again, where we asked the same questions here. Let me go back here. So we asked the same questions here. So back to this question. This question says, describe the last time you spent some time connecting with other people, right? And in this question, that this question is from a qualitative research, which is a user interview, right? And I asked, the goal of this was to find out how people connect with other people. So you see, this is the goal: connect with other people, how people connect with other people. And then in qualitative research, I'm focusing on the the on tweaking the question in a way that it invites the users to spare a bit, to share a bit more and give me context. So it's the same questions, but they are formed in different ways. So see, this says describe the last time you spent some time connecting with other people, right? See the same question. Yeah, how often do you connect and spend time with other people? Those are the same questions, but what is the difference in that question? The difference is that in this question, where I'm looking for the frequency, which is the frequency is what helps me quantify something, right? I'm looking for what I can quantify. So this is the same question. I'm saying, how often do you connect and spend time with other people? Yeah. I'm finding out how often you connect and spend time with other people. But in the qualitative part, I'm asking you about how you spend that time with other people, right? So it is, for instance, now you say I spend time with other people at least once a week, right? My qualitative question will now be to get you to talk a bit more about what you do when you spend more time with other people once a week. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So
but
you're asking the
can you
same
please
question,
explain
but
more?
you're asking Okay, you're asking the
Yeah.
same question, but you are asking it in a way that it gives you different insight about the user. One helps you
Yes.
get the frequency about how the user do certain things, right? And the other one helps you to understand why the user does those things, what motivates them to do those things. This qualitative research is about the why, and the quantitative research is about the often, the frequency of certain things, right? So if you tell me yes or no, like if I ask you, do you use Twitter, and you say no, right? That is like a qualitative question. I can ask 100 students in Unilag, for instance, that are studying. Let's say I can ask 100, do a survey for 100 Unilag medicine students and ask them, do you use Twitter? Simple yes or no question. They say no. One will say yes, right? Now, that that insight is important for me, because at the end of the day, when I can say from 100 response, I can say 60% of Unilag medicine students use Twitter, and 40% of Unilag medicine students do not use Twitter. That is the end of that qualitative research, because I've gotten like the insight I need that is quantifiable. So I can say from my research, I find that I find that 60% of Unilag medicine students do not use Twitter, and 40% of Unilag students use Twitter. But do I know why they don't use Twitter? No. But quantitative research, the goal is just to help me get quantifiable insight about them. Now, the research that helps me to understand why these people do not use Twitter is where quantitative, that 60% of people that will say they don't use Twitter, right? They are unified by the fact that they say you don't use Twitter, right? But when I come down to now do qualitative research for those people, there are reasons for why they don't use Twitter will be different. They will not be uniform again, they'll be diverse. So one will say, oh, I don't use Twitter because I think it's a terrible place. One will be like, oh, I don't use Twitter because I don't know how to use it. Now will be like, I don't use Twitter because people always say bad things about it. I don't use Twitter because I think that's stealing my data, right? You see, so qualitative research helps us to get to understand why users do things, their influence, their motivations, why. What motivates them to do certain things? Why don't you use Twitter? This is why I can talk about, oh, Twitter, I feel like Twitter is a very terrible place to be. People are very savage on Twitter and are very unfriendly. And that person can say, oh, I don't know if this gives a big context. Oh, I can see Louis. I hope this helps shed more clarity
Yes,
on
so
both
I want
things.
to ask like another question, like this same topic we are talking about. Okay, for
Okay.
example, if I, for example, my qualitative questions, sorry, my quantitative questions should it share close similarity with my quantitative questions? I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, what if I want to have a total new question? Like, it doesn't even have to like, for example, you made a what do you call this? An example of, okay, this one you said is the way, a way in the qualitative way, and another way, it's still the same question but in a way that makes users to explain more on what they feel about that question. But what if I'm okay? I have a question, I have a set of questions for my qualitative research, but I don't want to use those questions. You think it's like safe when I change the old questions while carrying out a quantitative research? Like it's not sharing close similarities with the qualitative research. I don't know if you get what I'm trying
Yeah,
to
I get you.
say.
So I think it
Okay.
is recommended that the questions you ask are similar. And the reason is, what is the goal of the research, right? The overall goal of the research, of whatever research you want to do, is the same, right? I want to learn about those users and they're using the same product, right? So, but we need to understand those two types of research are important, and the only way to ensure, and they're supposed to complement the other, and the goal is to understand, what do people do, right? What do my users do, and then why do they do what they do, right? So if you're asking what my users do, the why the rest the why they do certain things is like a corresponding question that's supposed to align with what they do. That's the only way, that's the best way we can then marry together and have like a firm reason that, okay, people do this thing, we know that people do this, but do we know why they do it? So you don't end up having questions that are what you've asked people on your quantitative research, why they do certain things, how frequently they do certain things, and they tell you. And if we're not asked a different question, right? Those we may not, at the end of the day, we may not have like a response for why people do some things that they must have answered. So the questions can completely be different, but they have to have the same underlying objective, right? So this question now says, the goal of this, see, before all these questions, I have like small labels on top of them. And these labels are like a guide for me. This is the objective of this question. What do I want to find out? I want to find out why people connect with themselves, right? How people connect with other people. Now I need to confirm, do people even connect with other people at all before I find out why they connect? So there are two things. It is what and the why. The what is what you are able to get from your quantitative research with your surveys, and the why is what you're able to get in your qualitative research and your user interviews, right? Because in your user interviews, the user have the opportunity to share why they do certain things, right? But in your survey, they're busy. They don't have the time and the motivation to just sit and start writing why, right? But you can easily use that survey to get like a wild response from people. So something will just do 5 minutes or 2 minutes and they're done, right? But user interviews usually take like 30 minutes, 1 hour to conduct. Like you will have the person's attention. So back to your question, you can change the questions, right? But they have to tie to the same goal. You see, for instance, this says, tell me about how you spend your free time. This one says, describe the last time you spent some time connecting with other people. So this is, how do you spend your free time? Now describe the last time you spent your free time connecting with other people. So I'm trying to marry the two together, but it can be different questions. But at the end of the day, the questions have to match with the same objective, which is I want to find out how people connect with other people. So whatever question I'm asking in my quantitative research has to be questions that help me find out the what in this objective that I'm finding out. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Hi,
Okay,
Louis.
so my question sounds a bit funny, but let me just ask. Because you were saying that both questions for the questions for both of the research methods should be based on the goals, right, of why you're doing that research. So
Yeah.
is it that whatever I asked Mr. Hay in quantitative, I'll still go and ask that? I'll still no wait. Like, are you saying that I'm going to ask a user both of these? I'm going to use both of these methods on a user, on all the users.
Oh yes, yes, that's what I'm saying.
So if I give it to, if I give quantitative to Mr. A to answer, I should still go and do user interview with him again for qualitative.
Yeah, so this project that I did, right? I interviewed these people, right? One on one for the user interview. And afterwards, I sent them a survey for this survey and say, can you please just take 5 minutes or 2 minutes of your time to fill the survey? And they won't see it as an extra work because the survey or your quantitative research is supposed to be tailored to focus on closed-ended questions that you can get quantifiable insight around, right? So that it's not the advantages of surveys that you can get responses from users without spending one-on-one time with them, right? So you may not be able to get everybody that filled the survey. You may not be able to get everybody that filled the survey in a one-on-one meeting, right? But you can always get everybody that did the one-on-one meeting to participate in the survey. You get?
Okay.
So, do you understand?
Okay.
But the benefits of that is,
So when I'm not collecting, so am I going to be collecting based on user on this particular qualitative?
um okay, so there's something called um if you're able to get some amount of insight about something, you can make that the base of what the entire population is. That's a bit tricky, but for instance, if when you're doing qualitative research, it is recommended to have like even numbers, like 5 responses or 7 responses. Now, when you get 5 responses or even 7 responses, it is it is okay if you're unable to get the people that did the quantitative research to answer the qualitative research, right? By the end of the day, you're able to get like this, which is why it's good that the questions are similar, because from your quantitative research, you would have get people saying yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, right? They'll be telling the what, right? And then with your quantitative research, when you interview like a few people, when you have the opportunity to interview a few people, those few people will be able to give you some kind of insight around why they do certain things, which is corresponding to the survey that you've already gotten, right? So you have a deeper understanding of the why than you would get even if you're not able to get everybody that answered the what to respond to the why. Hope that explanation
Yeah,
helped. It was a
yeah,
bit
I got the explanation. I'm just now confused about collecting the results.
okay. So the when I
Because
when you okay, let me explain the purpose of each of them, the end result of them. So for qualitative research, your end result is a user persona, right? not like it is you end up most likely in like having insight enough to come up with a user persona, right? And then your quantitative research helps you to come up with like problem statements. Do you get? So when you're collecting your insights, you are collating from your quantitative research, you'll be collating the insight that helps you come up with, when you're analyzing that insight, you come up with a problem statement, what you learned from the users from this qualitative research. And from quantitative research, you'll come up also with what you learned about the users. You see, in this my example, I was able to share what we learned from analysis. From our user research, we gathered the following insights about our users. Our users have high financial stability, blah 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 blah. This is an analysis. I'm not sure we did like surveys for this particular one, right? But we did user interviews for this, and we're able to still analyze what the user interviews are. From this interview, from this analysis, where the end goal of the qualitative research after our analysis was to come up with this user persona. Because remember, qualitative research helps us to learn about our user behavior. So when we've learned about user behavior, we have insight to come up with a user persona that tells us who these users are, right? Quantitative research tells us what these users do often, how they spend their time, how frequently do they do certain things, right? But qualitative research tells us who they are, which is important and relevant for us coming up with something called a user persona. Does that help?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We have just 5 minutes left till the end of class. Any more questions?
Sorry, please, I want to ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah, when writing a case study,
Okay.
yes, the challenges, when it comes to you writing challenges, is it the challenge the user is facing or the challenge I faced while working on everything?
Okay.
I want to ask that. Which challenge am I to write? Is it of the user or my own challenge?
Again, I didn't get you.
I said when writing a case study,
Yeah.
when you want to talk about challenges, is
Okay.
it the challenge of the user or my own challenges, like what I faced while doing everything I'm doing, like conducting the research and everything?
Okay. I think they are different. It depends on how you structure it. But when you're writing a case study, you're going to share insight about what you learned, what the challenges of the users are, right? And you can give that insight. But at the end, towards the end of your case study, you will then share what the challenges were, what would have been better if you had to transfer resources. It's like the final note of your research. Do you get?
Okay.
So they're the same thing, but they're similar. But one is at the end of your case studies where you talk about, oh, this case study I did it on my own, or the challenges I faced was this, and this would have been better if I had access to the user, or I wasn't able to interview more users that I wanted to, but I was able to get this insight, blah 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 blah. So, but in the starting point of your case study, where you're taking it step by step, the priority one is to find out what the user's challenges are,
Challenges.
right? And at the end of the day, you can now talk about what your challenge is with going through the project at the end.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a
You're
question, please.
okay. Go on, Francisca.
Okay, so my challenge has always been getting people to respond to the questions. Like after drafting your surveys and basically getting people to respond like to your surveys as fill them, and also getting users to interview. So what are the various platforms that we can put out this completed surveys so that we can get as much feedback to be able to draft our solution targeted to what they really want or what they really need?
Okay, so what I'll recommend is when you before you start up your user research, you need to first identify where you can find those users, right? So what I did in this project that I worked on was my user audience for my current project in school are charity volunteers, right? So I needed to interview charity volunteers. So what you do is you search on Google, for instance, for who are the users I want to interview. Let's say charity volunteers. Where can I find them, right? Sometimes they're specific as, okay, the users I want to find are charity volunteers. So, for example, I can go to search for communities where I can find these people. If my target audience are software engineers, where can I find software engineers? If my target audience are charity volunteers, for instance, what I did was I went on Facebook to look for charity volunteer communities and joined those communities. Right, I joined those communities and engaged with them for the first week and try to see how their activity is. So when you want to learn about them, you have to show interest in them. You join communities where you can find these users and engage in that community, and then you can reach out to one or few people there and say, oh, hello, I'm working on something and would you mind spending a few time to work with me about it, right? Chances are when you go to communities where you can find the users you want to interview, it is easier for them to be interested in it and giving some time to do it because they are literally, it is like a thing of interest for them, right? But if you go to, let's say, a community where people are gym enthusiasts, so to tell them you want to do research around community and charity volunteers, chances are you get very low response rate from them. So narrow down your search for users based on where you can find these people. And online, there are like physical places where there are places online, there are communities online on Facebook groups and Reddit and different places where you can find communities for these people. You can search on Google and you'll find. But if not, there are also physical places. Like for instance, I searched for communities and found some communities online. I also said, okay, where can I find charity volunteers? I usually at charity stores and from NGOs and the rest. So I looked for charity stores near me and I walked up to like a couple charity stores in my area and went to talk to the users there and I interviewed them on the spot, right? And so you need to find physical and online places where you can find these people, identify who your users are, and narrow down the search to areas where you can find them. Hope that helps.
Okay.
Okay.
So, really, I want to ask a
Hello.
question. Can you hear
All right. I think I'll just have a few more questions that I can take because it's already
me?
12. But you can ask the question. Go on.
Okay, all right, okay. So, building a product, like you trying to build a product or design a product, or as a product designer, at what stage do you get to do competitive analysis?
Okay, I would say in the early stage, but usually competitive analysis is something, it is more business focused, but usually is also is determined by the objectives as well. So, but usually that is done in the early stage because it gives you insights upfront on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So it's done in the early stage. If you're designing a product, so I'm guessing your competitive analysis will be to focus on what are the features of this particular product that make them stand out. So yes, that's supposed to be done early on so that you can map out where your strengths are and where you should focus on. But usually, if you're working on that, you should work closely with like the stakeholders, the co-founder that want to achieve it, and focus on what they want to achieve. I think the first point of order should be around talk to those people to tell you what they want to achieve before we go into searching for like competitors because that can somehow influence your decisions, right? To you would end up making some similar decision based on your competitors when you can actually do research and find out whether or not that is the best approach. But yeah, it should be done in the early stage.
Okay, thank you very much. So, another thing is during the competitive analysis, like, is there any like a guidelines or down principle that can be followed to achieve this?
So
Just
one is, I think it is very
yeah.
straightforward, but the primary thing is, and especially in user research, the primary thing before you begin anything is to gain clarity. And gaining clarity is to find out, always ask people what is your objective? What do you want to achieve with this thing? What do you want to compare? Right? What if you ask the stakeholders, for instance, what do you want to compare? They say, oh, want to compare what the features of those people that makes us stand out. So that way you narrow down your search. All you need to do is just open the website, check out for the things they want to compare, and check out in your own website and check out across different other websites. So you already have the objectives of what you want to achieve, right? It's simply you can create a table and say, okay, these are the objectives for what I want to achieve. Then column one, these are the competitors' names. Okay, competition A, competition B, competition C, competition D. Then you then need to map out, check for those things you want to compare against, and note who has it, who doesn't have it, who has it, who doesn't have it, basically. So it's similar to the approach where you can always like search more on Google to find out a bit more about it. So one of the things I want to encourage us to do is to spend a lot more time searching, right? Make Google like a priority, like your go-to place, because as user researchers, you would do a lot more researching. Like you'd have a simple research like opening Google and searching for how certain things are supposed to be done. When I was in that UX audit, I spent like 1 week thinking of what I should do, and I didn't know how to approach it. I'm like, I'm a bad guy designer, but I didn't know how to approach it. I realized I was doing it wrong. Like I didn't understand the objectives. And they've told me the objective, but I skipped the objective. So I went back to my notes and said, okay, what is the objective of this thing? What do they want to achieve? And I saw that even in the email they sent, they already had clear deliverables. Deliverable service map, we want to understand the UX or so and so, we want to test for this. I just focused on what the objectives were, and I was able to come up with like long documents explaining those things. So the best approach is to always find out first what the objectives are. The objectives are the guide to how you approach certain things because they influence you on what you should do and what you shouldn't do, what you should spend more time doing, and what you shouldn't waste your time on at all. Right? But I can do a Google search real quick and give you that, but I would encourage you to do that yourself.
Hello.
Okay.
Please, I have one last
Hi,
question. One last.
hi,
Okay.
sorry. Hi, Parklin. I've been trying to ask you a question since. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. That's Omoto
Yeah.
Yosi, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I just quickly take Francisca and then I'll take yours right away? Is that okay?
All right, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Francisco.
Okay. So I was part of a team that we were trying to design. Okay, they actually did design for the target audience were not Gen Z, like Gen Zs. So they are having a challenge because of the fact that people that they designed the solution for cannot navigate the application. So my question is, when you're trying to design a solution for a particular target audience, is it advised or are you advised to not, you know that they need this solution, but you know that they are not techy enough to be able to navigate that solution. So what is your advice? Is it that you design it to be less I don't really know how that can go, but it's something that we did in the interviews and they were happy about the solution, but now they can't use it because they cannot navigate it. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. So, first rule in user experience design and in user research, especially user experience design, is to not make assumptions, right? Is to test and research. Any assumption that you come up with, that we note those things as hypotheses, right? So when we say that they are not able to navigate it, and it would have been, even though they like the solution, it would have been a lot more effective if we conduct like user research to understand them and understand what their activities are like, understand asking them for their most used applications, right? In that case, when you ask them for something like their when you ask questions like, say, what are your favorite applications you use outside of work or outside of what you want to do? What are the applications you use? And they tell you, oh, I use Facebook, I use Twitter, I use this, I use that, right? Say, for instance, if they tell you they don't use any social media tools, then you know that they do not have like any social interaction skills or any social online social activity or how to use like a particular product, right? But if you ask them that kind of question and they tell you, say, WhatsApp or this or that, what you can do is when you've come to a solution that they can't navigate, you go back to your research to find out the apps that they told you are their most frequent apps, right? And find out from them why do you pick these apps? Why is this let's say they say WhatsApp. Why is WhatsApp your favorite app? Right? Why do you spend more time on WhatsApp? Why do you spend more time on Instagram? Why do you spend more time on Facebook? Right? From the data you get from that research exercise, you'll be able to understand which ones they spend more time on and why they do it. Let's say, for example, from the research, you'll find out that they spend more time on WhatsApp, right? Now, back to our challenge. They don't know how to navigate the solution we provided for them, but they know how to use WhatsApp. They spend WhatsApp, right? So what I would need to do is then go to WhatsApp and try to understand what is the mental model on WhatsApp. Mental model is the expectation that users have when they take a particular action, right? By default, when you look at the door, when you expect that when you do the door like this, it should go down, even though it does not signify that it can go down. What if it is pulling like this? But our mental model, when we see a door handle, is to take it down, right? That way, our brain expects the door to act in that way. So if somebody that created the door handle did not make the door handle to go like this and not make the door handle to be opened like this, that users will break that door handle, because their mental model of doors is that when I see a door handle, is that when I click on it, I should do it like this to open the door, right? That is mental model. So you go on WhatsApp or go on the favorite app, the most app that those users use, and understand what the mental model is on that app. Like, how does navigation work on WhatsApp? Why is WhatsApp very comfortable for them? And then you look out for the navigation experience on WhatsApp and use that to influence how your navigation experience is on the app. Chances are, if they are used to using WhatsApp and they understand how to use WhatsApp very well, if you take the same principle around the UX of WhatsApp into the UX of your product, they'll be able to navigate it and they will not feel like a new product because they are used to doing it on WhatsApp. It'll be easy. Imagine the way WhatsApp where you can find the back button or the different tabs on WhatsApp, the way it is arranged on WhatsApp that they are used to. If you arrange it the same way on your own products, chances are they'll be able to recognize that thing because they are used to going here. That when they click on this thing on WhatsApp, they expect so to happen. So when you put the same action in a particular area, when they click on it, they have an expectation of something to happen. Does that give some kind of clarity? Francisca, are you there? Francisca is here. But does this help? Does this help answer the question that you had?
Yeah, it's clear.
I don't know if Francisca is here on the call. All right, but let's. I guess this call is being recorded, so maybe she can.
Sorry, I just want to find out about something. If we were to reach out to you, like, if
Okay.
between something we're confused, how can we reach out to you, like, personally?
Sorry, let me engage Amotoyosi. I'll get back to that. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, Amotoyosi, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Parklin. When you were using the chip app to make an example, you mentioned something about doing usability testing for the drafts you did before changing some designs. And I was just wondering how one can do, like, how do you do that usability testing for a draft? Do you go back to the people you interview and ask them, like, will you be able to use this? Or, like, how do you go about it? That's my question.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
you're welcome. So I go back to the users that I interviewed and tell them, oh, from our conversation, I worked on something. Do you have some time to go through it and let me know what you think? Right. So you have to show genuine interest in the users. Those are the things that make them comfortable to like speak to you and even keep on testing your product, right? Because when you've identified these users and during your user interview, you get them to be very comfortable. You talk to them and understand their pain points, get them to talk about their pain points, let them feel listened, right? Let them feel like you are listening to them and people like feeling listened, right? Feeling valued and feeling important. Now, once you've gathered this insight, you go and work on a particular um, improvement on it. When you need to test, you can go back to them and say, hello, Parklins, thanks a lot from our last session. I've made some changes based on what you suggested, or based on what I spoke to you, based on the points. I came up with some solution I can fix that in. Would you be interested to just go through it and let me know what you think? I'm like, oh yeah, cool. My curiosity to want to see how you've tried to fix the pain points that I was frustrated about. That's an interest. That triggers me to want to see, okay, let me see what you've done. Right. And that way I can share my genuine interest that I don't understand. What is this? What do I click here? What do I click here? Right. So, but you can achieve this in different stages of the design. You can do it in the low fidelity wireframe stage. You can do it in the high fidelity GUI stage, or any stage, even when the design is almost done, right? But for in this particular project, we created like a Marvel app where we use this wireframes. We use the Marble app to we took photos of the wireframes on paper and used that, uploaded them to Marvel app to create like a low fidelity prototype, and took this to the users as it's rough. This made them feel like part of the process, right? We got them to click around, and from that research, from that activity, we're observing them. We're not asking them, oh, what do you think about this? We're observing them as they use it, and we're noting down the challenges that they encountered during it. So to test, user testing is even a different thing, because you have to set testing case, as in the focus of your testing. You have to check what you want to test about. So you see, in my usability test, for instance, okay, in this stage where we said we derived the list of features to test. Now this and created testing questions to help validate the ideas we came up with. Our testing focused on the following: homepage redesign, security features, savings breakdown, and new appointments, right? So when you want to test, you need to derive what you want to test from these designs, and that would then be the focus of your testing. So when I give the users the app, I'll then come up with test questions that tell them to, okay, see this, for instance, this is a test question. I'll come up with user testing questions, which would then form something like tasks. Task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4. There's some tools that you can use to do this kind of things. Example like Maze. You guys can check out maze.co. I think I have one project that I did with Maze, but Maze helps you. Let me see if I can. Um, okay, I can't do this right now, but you guys check out Maze. Maze is for user testing. It's where you create you create your objectives of what you want to test, and you break them down into tasks. So task 1 to be like missions. So be like let me see if I can use this. Okay, so you guys check out Maze. It's an amazing tool for user testing, right? But back to what I was stressing on, we came up with like tasks. So based on what we want to test, I came up with task 1, review hidden account balance. So I'll give the user the phone and say, oh, can you try to review your account balance with this app? And then I'll ask for permission to video record the user or observe him while he's trying to click his account balance. I'll watch him do it, but I'm observing his struggle. If he's able to find it, I'll measure how much time it took him to accomplish the task, and and if he was able to accomplish the tasks. And at the end of the day, I'll ask him what his pain points, what was the process like, did he enjoy it? You see, I'm getting insight. User testing is a different thing from user research. I hope we'll have another session to talk about user testing, but it is how you validate your research, your ideas, or what you're coming up with, right? Hope that gives some context.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, back to Josephine. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just we're going one by one. I needed to like respond to take it step by step. So back to you.
Yeah. Do I have to okay, I want to repeat. So I was saying, like, if you want to reach out to you, like besides the class, to get some other clarification, what medium can we use?
Oh, okay. I'm going to still take you guys again. I have another session with you, I think next 2 weeks. So I'll always be available. I'm on Slack. So my name is Parklins on Slack, but also you can, okay, so I can share this link to the chat. So it is Linktree. It has links to everywhere where I am. So I am. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Most of it are on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would accept. So it's just my name, but you can find the link on that link tree. And I'm on ADP list. I don't know if you know about ADP list. It's where you can schedule sessions where we can talk about challenges that you have. It will just be like short 30 minutes or 1 hour sessions where we can talk more about how the process is going, if you have any challenges and things like that. But it's basically just for short sessions. So you can find me here, you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. I just became very active on Twitter, so you guys can follow me on Twitter. Yep. And where else again? Instagram. My Instagram account is on private, but you can follow me on Instagram as well. What else? And then on Dribble. I don't think you can. Okay, I think you can follow me on Dribble, but my Dribble account is basically just I've not updated it since. But yes, I'm on Dribble as well. You can go and check out some nice stuff that I did and try to redesign it, and we can see how cool they are. But yeah, these are the places you can find me. I hope I've touched on everything. Yeah, and I'm on Clubhouse, but I don't accept any more friends on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook though, but I don't accept any more on Facebook. But the most effective places are on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and on ADP list. You can schedule like sessions. Like I just had sessions like this week with a couple of people, and you can go and read a bit more over there. But I would also be on Slack, but I've not been very active, but I'll try to be um a lot more active on Slack. Um so yeah. But I would that being said, I would also be available to take you guys again on other sessions besides today. So I'm trying to get to I'll be able to take you guys again on other sessions.
Yeah, so which out of all of these mediums now, which like are you like very, very active on? Which of the social
I'll
medias?
say Twitter.
Because I might send a message to you somewhere and you might not get to read it like 2 days after. Like if I need like another response. Besides the RSVP stuff.
Okay, Twitter.
Okay.
Twitter is the most effective. I just sent the link to on the chat. Hope that helps. So and I joined like design what's the word? Twitter Spaces. So I plan to host one soon. Um so you guys can find me there. Just follow me on Twitter. I'm most responsive on Twitter. LinkedIn, it takes a while for me to check, but I'm active there as well. But Twitter is most effective. My Instagram is on private, meaning I don't want people to find me there. But Twitter, we're good. All right, guys. You guys can unmute yourself and just say hello to yourselves. You guys I want you guys to collaborate and share the insights with yourself because one of the most effective ways to for this particular cohort is you guys to work together. So some people may not be able to pick up most of the things that must have happened, but you guys be willing to collaborate with yourselves and go over what we've learned, but go over it together with yourselves. Chances are the more you share what you've learned with other people, the more that thing sticks into your conceptual path of your mind, as in it sticks and goes deeper into your understanding, right? The more I keep explaining these things to you guys, makes it easier for me to remember what user experience research is. If I go for any interview and they ask me what it is, I can boldly say, this is what it is, right? So you guys, I encourage you to collaborate with yourselves and what else? That's pretty much it. So everybody, thank you guys for being patient and taking the time and working with me all through this session. I hope you enjoyed this session. Tell me briefly how it was.
Hi, I wanted to ask something.
Okay. Hi, Dover.
Yeah, the session was super interesting, and I would like if you can share the slides so that we can refer to it
Okay, no
on
problem.
the Slack channel.
I'll try and finish up the slide so that I can share it to you guys on Slack.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Dover. All right, guys. Thank you all for being here. Anyone has anything to say, but no questions? Again, I don't I don't have the strength to.
So much, Parklands. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot. All right, guys. I have to go out now. The class was supposed to be for 2 hours, but we literally
Thank you
spent.
very much. It was actually very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josephine.
You.
Thank you very much. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Parkland. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it so much.
As
All right, guys. All right.
Thank you so much for sharing part of your wealth of knowledge.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Parkland.
All right. Thank you all. I have to go now. Bye.
Parkland, have a lovely day.
You too. All right.
Bye, Parkland.
Guys, see you next class.